Vibration. How's everybody doing? How you feeling? You got your fuzzy slippers on? You getting cozy? Y'all trying to get cozy? I mean, you might be driving. You might have your earphones in, doing some things. You might have a couple minutes. You just want to, see what's going on, man. We get cozy over here, man. This is Drop Nation. Welcome. Get cozy with us. We just like to vibrate with books and stuff. We like to vibrate to that indigenous drop, that indigenous truth. We got a team of researchers, man. Sisters and brothers that just dig on it, man, for fun. Because they enjoy the wake-up call. They enjoy blowing that shofar. The sound of that trumpet, the sound of that vibration. We enjoy that, man. I mean, nothing's cooler than digging on it. So, how y'all feeling, man? What y'all want to do? You know what I mean? I didn't have any plans. Let me fix my fire right quick. Let me get my fire right. Okay. Okay. All right. What y'all want to do? What y'all want to do? This is y'all classroom, man. What y'all want to do? Y'all want to see Bam Bam build some stuff? Y'all want to go check out Bam Bam? You know who Bam Bam is. My man. Yo, man. I told you, man, that sometimes they got to teach us. They got to teach us our shit. Bam Bam, man. Love to primitive technology. He's about to make a water-powered hammer. This is, 8 minutes, man. We're going to check out some of it, man, and just vibrate out. We'll get back into, back in that great library, man. I'm so happy that it's, right here live in full effect for you. Go dig on that Menasseh ben Israel, because we'll be getting back into that. But, man, love to Miss D, man. I can't leave it alone, sister. I can't leave it alone. I mean, since the sister dropped this, I can't leave it alone. So love to Miss D. So glad that we was able to track this down, man. And yeah, man, we're just talking about the chronologies and the Byzantines, and how recent things actually were. I mean, when you got authors in the 15th century, the 1400s, talking about seeing Pompeii untouched. And we're digging on that, the Schism of 1054, getting back into all that, these astronomical events going on around these signs and their Messianic situations. And it's all seems to be coming out of these 12th century, 13th century, 14th century, man, and something happened. I mean, we can all kind of admit that by now, that something happened. I mean, when they changed times and laws, I mean, how deep do you think they went? How deep is the magic? The excavations of Pompeii are a striking example of the problems which arise in the dating of archaeological material. The 15th century author Jacopo Sannazaro wrote, "We were approaching the city Pompeii and its towers, homes, theaters, and temples, untouched by the centuries, already were visible." So how is this author writing that Pompeii is visible with its towers, its homes, its theaters, its temples, and that they were untouched by the centuries, already were visible? This is the 15th century. But Pompeii is considered destroyed and covered by the eruption of 70 AD. Yeah, man, you look at Pompeii, you wiki Pompeii. It was an ancient Roman town city near modern Naples in Campania region of Italy in the territory of commune of Pompeii. Pompeii, along with Herculaneum, Hercules, and many villas in the surrounding areas, was mostly destroyed and buried under 4 to 6 meters, 13 to 20 feet of volcanic ash and pumice, in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, they're calling it. Now, was this in 79 AD, or did they add 1,000 years? Cut dynasties up syncretinize it all and just drop the different stories in different places and times. And now you can't perceive how one thing can be the other. You can't perceive anyone talking Genghis Khan and King David in the same sentence. Yet you dig up their drop. You dig up their drop. You start tracking their stuff down, man. Who was Prester John, man? We're going to come back. Be up on the Prester Johns, man. Who was El Prester Juan? They call him the last noble image. They call us the last noble image of the Negro. Nobility. Remember the regal Negro? The royal regal Negro? Migration of Udall, Yashara, who was Prester John. Man, you can't start linking all this stuff up, man, and not link it all up, man. Because they've been linking it up about these connections, man. The political aspect of the legend, again, came forth in the 13th century, November 1219. Pay attention to these dates. Damietta was conquered by the Crusaders, which could have just popped off, right? In the spring of 1221, the report was circulated among the victors that in the east, King David. So they got a report of someone literally named King David in the 1200s. Now, yeah, it could be anybody, right? Either the son or nephew of the presbyter. So this person was identified as being related to the prester. So he's related to the prester, either the son or nephew. Priest king is all we're saying. Hey, I'm just saying, man, we're just digging on it. Don't mind us. Shabbat shalom. Enjoy your peaceful rest. I rest by talking to you. This is my rest, man. This is an enjoyable period. I'm in rest mode, if you can't tell. I'm getting cozy with you, if you can't tell. We just chilling. We just chilling, man. We just chilling. Vibrate. Activate. Because I ain't the only one going crazy. If this is crazy, I ain't the only one going crazy. Because someone else is saying what? Another researcher I've never met before is saying who? That King David's popping up in the 1200s. Priest King, King David, Priest King, Prester John, Priest King, either the son or nephew of the presbyter, priest, had placed himself at the head of 3 powerful armies and was moving upon the Mohammedan countries, the Mohammedan countries. Look, man. So some King David was rolling up on Thoth in them. So Thoth was a hijack in this person's mind. Now they're going to try to, put him into the Nestorians. And we got that, old king renowned for wise counsel. We'll keep getting that because that's all they're talking about. They have to make a separation between the classic Christian. So they put these other people in a whole other category named Nestor or Nestorian. And even when you research Nestor, it's another mythical figure that they say, who knows if he existed. So it's all myth. It's all a myth when it comes to you. King David would be a Nestorian Christian to them. King Solomon, even though they're Israelites. Enoch would be a Nestorian Christian, even though Enoch is rocking with the Creator, straight up, traveling levels above the barrier. He would be a Nestorian Christian to them. Madness. But this is how they, play their English spelling. So King David, either the son or nephew of the presbyter, had placed himself at the head of 3 powerful armies and was moving upon the Mohammedan countries. An Arabic prophecy foretold that when Easter fell on the 3rd of April, the religion of Muhammad would be abolished. This occurred in 1222, and many expected that King David and his hosts would offer their support To the long-awaiting army of Frederick II, the enthusiasm that this announcement created in the camp of Damietta led to primitive outbreak of the Franks against Cairo and the defeat of the army, and the history germ is easily discovered. King David is no other than the Mongolian conqueror Genghis Khan. Now, this person is just surfing the wave. Because let's keep walking. Let's keep going. Who at this time was 3 legions pushed forward towards the west. So whether it's Genghis Khan or whether it's Ang Khan or Toru, Wang Khan, Ang Khan was the ruler of the Kariot tribe. We're talking Mongols. And an ally and then opponent of Genghis Khan. He was an ally and then an opponent of Genghis Khan. Ang Khan was a blood brother of Genghis Khan's father, Usige. So blood brother of his, so Ang Khan was a blood brother of Genghis Khan's father, Yasuge. So he's his blood uncle. So this is confirming right here where it says, no, we'll get there. We just surfing away, don't mind that. Yeah. King David, either his son or nephew, the presbyter, no other than Genghis Khan, who at this time. So King David is no other than the Mongolian conqueror, Genghis Khan. So again, these Ruses and these Mongolian titles and these Kariots, they were hiding Israelite kingdoms in that timeline right there and labeling it Mongol. Now they have their other version of Mongol, and we know what that looks like, the modern Chinese thing and all that. But the original OG, original label that they were putting on were these Israelite tribes. And they were right there in Rus. And they were right there in Mazaka. All of this. Watch, man. Watch, man. Miss D would tell you that, man. This wonderful medieval Israelite empire is amazing because it ties a lot of this, a lot of these gaps that we can at least surf the wave on, you know what I mean, and get the babies out. So this researchers are saying that King David was or is Genghis Khan, who at this time, with 3 legions pushed forward towards the west and in a most sanguinary battle, annihilated the power of Islam in Central Asia. And that's why they were getting recruited by the Christians, because these people were annihilating Islam. And they were all a blood family. And they all look like this. El Prestuan, Emperado of the Los Abyssinios. Did a black man discover the fountain of youth? And in this article, they break down that in his letters, he says he took 6 baths in the fountain of youth, and each time he turned back to 32. And Ronald Sanders calls him the last noble image of the Negro, your King David, your Prester John. What do the prophets write? Does David return again? Do the prophets ever write that David returns again? That he reigns again? So they're annihilating the power of Islam. He and many of his successors were favorable to the Christians, right? They weren't Christians, but they were favorable to them. Now you see why they call them Nestorians. And down here it says Nestorians. Nestor, again. Nestor. Etymologies. Nestor, name for old king, renowned for wise counsel. Stop. So you're just referring to a king that is famous for wisdom. Come on. Come on. Who's the wisest king written about? There's only two people historically famous for wisdom. You got Buddha, right? This wise Buddha. And then you got Solomon, who is a King David. David is a title, the wheat. Let him dangle the wheat. So every time you see Nestor, Nestorian, they're only referring to a wise, famous king for his wisdom. Old king that's wise and famous for his wisdom. Then they get into their own little hijack of it. Oh yeah, we're going to get there on the dismount, man. We're going to get there on the dismount. Did a black man discover the fountain of youth? And who was Prester John? And we coming right back. But I'm just getting my appetite going, man. And let me get this last part. So they were favorable to the Christians and adverse to the Mohammedans. The Mongol kingdom also surpassed all Asiatic principalities by its display, but the name David, given to the Eastern conquerors, still remains unexplained. Dum dum dum. Now check it. Here's how we develop. So I like this because this particular research is actually surfing the wave and giving you different looks. So now instead of calling King David Genghis Khan, we're going to get it like this. The horrible slaughter committed by the Mongols soon proved that they were no pious pilgrims bound for the Holy Sepulchre. Still less were they Christians. After a short time, the legend assumed another form. It said that the Mongols were the wild hordes mentioned in the presbyter's letter to Manuel. They had risen up against their own ruler, King David. So the Mongols, who they're calling Mongols, rose up against their own ruler. Their own ruler. These Moors rode up against their own Moors. Their own melanated family. Their own ruler. So his people did a coup. His own people rose up against them. Against them. The whole tribe. His whole people. Against you. This is your history. They had risen up against their own ruler, the last noble image of the Negro, King David, priest king, in the 1200s, murdering both him and his father. The Speculum Historiale of Vincent Bievius says, in the year of our Lord 1202, after murdering their ruler David. Man, now this is documented in 1202 in the Speculum Historiale, written by Vincent of Bievius. And he's writing in the year of our Lord 1202. 1202, family, 1202. After murdering their own ruler, David. So he's mentioning David in 1200s as a ruler, an emperor, priest king, Prester John. The Tartars set about destroying the people. Certain historical facts from the basis of this remarkable report, Bar Hebraeus mentions that in 1006, the Mongolian tribe of the Karyots in Upper Asia had become Christian, Nestorians. See how they couldn't just say Christians? They had to say Nestorians. Old king renowned for wisdom, Solomon. According to the account of Rubiques and Franciscan, these Karyots were related to the Naimans, another Mongolian shepherd tribe, and paid tribute to their ruler Khan. They were also Nestorian Christians. Alright. And in that vicinity were considered the countrymen of Prester John. The prince of the Karyots, Khan. or Hong Kong, was in 1202 completely subject to the superior power of Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan, his own nephew, remember the black, melanated image of Genghis Khan sent to us, about a family man. So we have the image of Genghis Khan as a brother sitting on his throne. Genghis Khan. You've seen that before. So yeah, you take that brother and then you have his uncle. Now, when we get back in these Byzantine timelines, you got to say, man, like, see how they're rewriting the story and putting it another place. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same story, different place. So you're like, how can that be? These Mongols, it's the same story, different place, different names. Now you got to go to get to Prester John, to get to King David, you got to go through Ang Khan. This is King David. Tribe of Judah, Cariates. So the Cariates are the tribe of Judah, are the Udal Aztec. So the two continued their alliance over the next decade, joining together with Jurchid forces to raid the Tartars in 1196. Ang Khan joined forces with Genghis to defeat Jamukha. So we got to get on these wars because King David joined forces with his nephew Genghis to defeat Jamukha. Now who's that? The increasing power of Genghis caused a break between the two. Genghis proposed a marriage alliance with Ang Khan or King David. This was initially refused. Ang Khan then agreed to the alliance with the intention of ambushing Genghis and killing him. Other stories say that Prester John just flat out said no, and Genghis Khan just said, all right, well, I'm going to roll up on you then. And if this happened in 1200s, and if it happened here, or whatever India it happened on, but there was an invasion. And it was a melanated invasion. And this thing been cracking off, man. And now you have more of a straw man. You know what I'm saying? These people in power now are like, just kind of cleaning up, coming up with cleaning up scraps. But those original Spaniards, melanated. Those original Portuguese, melanated. Anything you consider Mongol, melanated. Vikings, melanated. Kingdoms, Scottish, Highlands, melanated, Russes and Picts. Genghis escaped and regrouped. So that's all right. So his forces decisively defeated Ang Khan in October 1203. Prester John. He said Ang Khan fled to the lands of the Naaman, but was killed by Naaman soldiers. Like many Cariates, Ang Khan was an historian. Here we go. All right. And is one of the leaders associated with the legend of Prester John. So the prince of the Cariates, Ang Khan, Ang Khan. So Ang Khan is Ang Khan, whether it's UNC or ONG. Or Hong Kong, HONG. All right, so Hong Kong is King David? Yeah, Hong Kong is King David. Ang Khan was in 1202 completely subject to the superior power of Genghis Khan, who meanwhile was on the friendliest terms with his family, thus giving the Cariates a certain amount of independence. Marco Polo speaks of Ang Khan as the great prince who is called Prester John. The whole world speaking of his great power. So this was the biggest thing, man. You know what I'm saying? We got another drop where it was comparing this myth or foundation with that of Atlantis or anything else. I mean, his kingdom, you're talking about Eden. You're talking about the what? The who? Did a black man discover the fountain of youth? If you got the fountain of youth, I think you might have to drop. So this is major piece, man, that we'll get back to. And I'm tying this into the Byzantine chronology because we're talking about King David, you know what I'm saying, popping up in the 1200s, 1202. Speculum Historiale, Vincent de Beaulieu. In the year of our Lord 1202, after murdering their own ruler, David, the Tartars set about destroying the people. So first they call him Genghis Khan, then they said, oh, well, he was rolled up on, you know what I'm saying, by this Genghis Khan. And it goes into, more of the, kingdoms in India, what they calling that. The joint of Colombo in India. Man, so then the goose. All right. This is just the intro. We're just chilling. But hold up. So yeah, man, Pompeii is just popping up in the 15th century, but Pompeii is considered destroyed and covered by the eruption of 79 AD. Is it too much to explain anything? Archaeologists are forced to accept Sannazzaro's words. Thus, in the 15th century, some of Pompeii's buildings already stood out higher than the alluvium, and some they include, as we see, both towers, homes, and theaters and temples. In a word, the whole city. So, he's saying all this stuff just popped up in some illusion and then disappeared and then popped back up in 1748 when they stumbled across it. Or was it already there? A fantastic picture is being formed. The thing is that there was never one case when ancient settlements buried beneath the earth would have appeared over time on the surface and then once more have gone beneath the alluvium. Such cannot be. But they reason about Pompeii, the remains of which were stumbled across only in 1748 in particular. Otherwise, it would be necessary to change all dating. We're just talking chronology. And like I told y'all, we just chilling. We just getting cozy. It's warming up for you now. Feeling it. You should be feeling it. You should be feeling redeemed right about now. You shouldn't be feeling so stressed out and bogged down. Even if shit is going on. Just know, man. Just know. You just gotta know. We all gotta know. We all gotta feel. We all gotta, what I'm saying? It's a period of knowing. This ain't no guessing game, man. We are knowing that this fire can't be quenched. They can't throw enough water on it. They can't put enough hijack in it. This is that eternal blaze. Burns through everything. Cuts everything wide open. Puts pressure on it. Gets the purified substance. So I asked you, man, what y'all want to do, man? I mean, yeah, we're digging on some Byzantine Chronology Part 3. We're just kind of wrapping it up. It's not going to be a long thing, We're going to keep building, though. Y'all want to see Bam Bam build some stuff? I said, man, sometimes you got to let them teach you your old tricks and your own ways. Let's dig on this, man. Primitive technology. He's building what? Some type of water hammer? I don't know, man. This guy got a lot of time on his hands, but I'm glad, man, because it's actually pretty dope, and it's inspiring, It's inspiring to say, man, what can we do when we're left alone, at peace? Bam, bam. Bam Bam! What you doing, Bam Bam? Stuff look crazy, man. Yeah, Bam Bam never really says shit, man. He just kind of builds stuff, you know. He says, man, you figure it out, man, but I just want you to see this shit can happen, alright? Just watch me do this shit. This shit can happen. Y'all get it together. Yeah, it's pretty dope, though. It's pretty dope. Fills up with water. Release. Bam. Bam, bam. Yeah, it's a nice stream of water right there. That mountain. That real. You can definitely see how that would be useful. If I have some pistachios or something. Crunch some almonds up or something. You dig it. You might be making pancakes or something, man. Just might need to get your pancake batter right. Go over to your water-powered hammer, you know what I mean? Get the flapjacks going. Keep the party going. Have the flattest flapjacks in the land, man. Yeah. Love the primitive technology, man. Bad. We just, we just trying to learn a couple things a day while we get cozy, man. We appreciate you, man, for getting out there and making it happen. Hey, everyone can learn something from somebody. Everyone could learn something from somebody. So where were we, man? How y'all want to do this? I wanted to belly fly back into that, let's keep the Mongol going, man. Let's keep the Mongol chronologies. Dealing with the Byzantine. Might as well start digging in. We mentioned a little bit on this Mongol yoke before. Oh, man, I done stumbled on some pictures. What page is this? I got color pictures. I got color pictures in the PDF. Y'all click on this PDF. We got color pictures. I thought we didn't have no colors. See, every time they doubt us, we come back with color pictures. Every time. All right. Roman civilization. I look crazy. All right. Yeah. All right. Getting some good stuff here. I'm trying to get this chapter, man, before we go crazy. Start looking at color pictures and stuff. Ah, man, I just saw Moses, but don't know what page that was. Sometimes it won't kind of fast. The Mongol yoke. So yeah, we got a piece of this. I just wanted to jump right in, back to it. As we got this chronology in mind, we know what they're talking about. They're 1053, so adding 1,000 years. Keep all this stuff in mind. Keep Prester John in mind, the Genghis Khan situation, the 1200s. You know what I mean? Surf that wave a little bit. So Russia's history is directly involved with those investigations which concern the nomads. Remember the Regal Negro nomads? Get that last drop, part one of the series. So, you know what I mean? He was calling you the Regal Negro nomads of Judah. Exiled, Babylonian exile, exilarchs. David Salsland, Prester John, Babylonian exilarch, Israelite kings. Russia history is directly involved with those investigations which concern the nomads, which we examined in the previous chapter. We shall touch here on a few pages of this history for the basic methods of falsifying the past in service of the political interests of ruling dynasties are neatly exemplified in them. These same techniques are found without exception in the histories of all Eurasian countries. The Mongolian quote-unquote version was widely propagated in Russia. Russian history historians were not able to speak in this about the savage tribes. You see this savage always pop up, even today on the news. You call it a savage. You protest, have no fights, you'll still get hit with some type of rubber bullet. Because you're a savage, you're an Indian, Aztec savage. The Mongolian version was widely propagated in Russia. Russian historians were not able to speak in this about the savage tribes as they did about their own kinfolk. If they did, it would turn out that Russia is not a European country, but Asian, and this has a negative connotation in the Europe of the 18th, 19th centuries. It is suggested something hopelessly outdated, arrested in its development. Russians did not want very much to have such uncongenial forefathers. This being the case, a slender and at first glance extremely convincing version of the birth and development of the Russian state was constructed, which involved the dramatic participation of both her Western and Eastern neighbors. With respect to this, if the West brought to the forefathers of the Russians the light of knowledge and a desired order, then the East supplied nothing to them but difficulties. In other words, Scaliger Patavius, these are the culprits of this timeline business, all right? Of this chronology business that you're trusting in. You're trusting in these people's minds. You're in the mind of a hijack and the illusion. And all over it is written Scaliger and Patavius. In other words, the Scaliger Patavius scheme, because this chronology is a scheme which had been contrived for Europe, was adopted, but with one difference. They called themselves Slavs rather than Romans. And the bad fellows, the narrow-eyed and wide-cheekboned horsemen with bows and arrows who did not know either to read or to write or think. They could only shoot, kill, and fill their bellies with half-naked, half-baked horse-flesh Mongols, right? So that's your depiction of this lawless Mongol, right? That's how history depicted. You know, you're getting their versions of things. So we can't take their version of Mongol. You can't take their version of devil, of what they call this, of what they call this, of what they call a cross, of what they call a dragon, of what they call a serpent. You can't take their version of anything. You have to dig on it. Weigh it. They find the beginning of this version in medieval manuscripts, that is, in the most ancient of the writing sources for Rus. They are called variously Radziwill, Laurentien, and Pativ, Trinity Saints, Sergei. They name these after those monasteries in which they were found. It is considered that some of them are older and others the less so. Some supposedly are originals, while others have reached us only in copies because the originals were burnt, were lost, were stolen, were buried, in short, disappeared once and for all. In other words, we have here the same pattern that we have had already seen in the various other forgeries and falsifications which form the basis of European history. We say this with full confidence because at this moment there are very few indeed, who dispute that all the known copies of the manuscripts most likely were written at the end of the 17th, start of the 18th centuries. I'll say it again. These people, you're seeing a conglomeration, a correlation here. We're tying this together with the flamenco. They're digging on flamenco. In this particular Robert Grisham Vladimir joint. So these Ruses, they're in Russia and they're like, man, we got to tell this history, man. Just like in America, some are like, man, we got to tell the history about the G. Kincaids and the mummified bodies in the Grand Canyon. We got to tell the history about the G. Kincaid excavations. So whether you're over here or you're over there, the history they're digging up is your kingdom. And what they're telling you about what you think you know, they're saying, indeed, few indeed who dispute that all known copies of the manuscripts, everything that's known, all of them, not some, all known, all known copies of the manuscripts most likely were written at the end of the 17th. So we're talking 1600s, 1700s. And again, they thought their world was ending in 1666. These millennialists, these millennium people. The texts copy each other and everything, even down to such small things as turns of phrase. It is no less significant that all copies known today were written on one and the same paper with the characteristic watermark, the head of an ox. Come on, connected. Proof upon proof, coins are mentioned in these, which were supposedly in use as early as 9th and 10th century. They took taxes from the people in coins. Unfortunately, coins first appeared as numismatists who studied the development of coinage irrefutably show not earlier than the late Middle Ages. So he's saying coins first appeared irrefutably. So this coinage, this development of coinage, it irrefutably shows that these coins first appeared no earlier than the mid to late 9th century, the same ones that are supposed to be 9th to 10th century. But about this in greater detail is the chapters following this one. There is a passage in this manuscript which has provoked the most prolonged and obsessive attention among Russian historians down to this very day. They have been fighting about it for the last 2 centuries. The reason for all this attention is that it is the only account of the origin of the Russian Rus state. And this by no means satisfies everyone. They refute, defend, and interpret it in every various way possible. Without exaggeration, dozens of volumes have been written about it. Here is a version which causes a clash among the scientists themselves, who elucidate from whence the Russian land came. In translation into contemporary language, it reads thus, and I quote, "In 859, the Varangians levied a tribute from abroad. They took a silver coin, and as squirrel from smoke, that is, from any dwelling over which smoke curled out of the chimney in the winter. In 860, 861, and 862, they exiled the Varangians beyond the sea, Lake Ilmen, and started to rule by themselves to their liking, and they had no order and began wage war against each other, and they resolved it themselves among themselves. Let us find ourselves a prince in order to govern and judge us according to law. And they went to the Varangians, to the Rus, as the Varangians called themselves." So they're calling them Varangians, but he's saying the Varangians called themselves the Rus. Clan Ross, Rus. "And they said, all our land is great and abundant, more great and abundant, but there is no order in it. Come to reign and govern us." And three brothers were assembled with their families, and they themselves headed all the nobility, and they came. The eldest Rurik sat in Novgorod, the second Senius in Beluzero, and in the third Esborsk in Truvor. And from these the Novgorod land was named Russia, because these Rus were gathered there to lead as nobility. The key word in this passage is Varangians. A professor of the St. Petersburg Academy of Sciences, Theophilus Siegfried Bayer, expressed the opinion in 1736 that this is the name of the Scandinavians who gave a state system to the Rus. After that, the so-called Norman theory of the origin of a state system in Rus came into being. In subsequent centuries, dozens of the most noteworthy historians, both in Russia and abroad, adhered to it. G. Miller, A. Kuhn, a bunch of cats. In time, a powerful school of anti-normists was created, comprised of such as Mihail Lomonosov, Stephen, all these long names, who considered that if there ever had been such a people as Varangians, then these people were Slavs. It must be explained why the two Russian schools still argue so violently. The subject of the disagreement carries with it political overtones. There is endless discussion of who, in the final analysis, the Russians are, the Rus are. So they're not talking about who these white people are. They're saying who are the Rus, who's Clan Ross, who are these Picts. So every time you look up one of these names for you, they keep saying we don't know who they are. If you look up the Picts, they'll be like, we don't know really, honestly, who the hell they are, but we just have theories. If you look up the Rus, the endless discussion of who, in the final analysis, the Russians are, of whether they are Europeans or Asians, and of what role Europe played in their destiny. They don't know. You look up the Americans, here's my theory of who these copper color races are. You're the one people, no matter what they call you, that they don't have a clue where you come from or who you are or anything about you. You're just a fantasy to them. You're a myth. You're the foundational legend. You exist. Why? The adherents of the anti-Norman school thought and think even now that Russians themselves are capable of everything. Rus, without any influence from outside. So you leave these people alone and they're fine. You leave them alone and they're fine. I'm just telling you this because, you know, they're talking about you. When you hear Rus, they're always talking about you. And we're going to dig much more on the Picts. We're going to dig much more into these surnames. We're going to dig much more into this. But when you just look up a surname, right? Andrews, the Picts of ancient Scotland. So you have Picts. Who are the Picts? You click Picts. Alright. The Picts were mysterious warrior people. Mysterious warrior people of ancient Britain. Britain means covenant. Warrior people of the land of covenant. According to tradition, the Picts migrated from the shores of Brittany around 15th century BC. Alright, dodge the hijack timelines. They sailed northward to Ireland, but were refused permission to settle there by the ancient kings of that land. However, the Picts were granted permission to settle in the northeastern part of Scotland on the condition that each Pictish king marry an Irish princess. So they had to marry into their women. Then they took the maternal lineage and said, yes, you have to trace our royal seed through the mother. Now they're looking through the mother, since they forced these Pictish kings, these Israelite kings, to marry their women, their Irish princesses, thus providing the Irish with a colony whose rulers were of royal Irish blood. Now they had royal blood because they married into the Picts. This Pictish settlement was ruled by a matriarchal hierarchy. Why? Because they married into the women. And now they had royal Irish blood, which produced a matriarchal hierarchy. The Picts were noted for their ferocious resistance to the incorporation of Britain into the Roman Empire. They were fighting the hijack. The Romans gave the Picts a name by which we know them, and their name for themselves is now lost. Who knows what they called themselves? Oh, we don't know who they are. Who knows what they called themselves? We just talking Picts. Now the Picts of ancient Scotland are these Rus. Andrews, Rus, Andrea. This family was strongly associated with Clan Ross. Ross is Rus. Rus is Ross. And if you ever doubt, well, I know I see a melanated man on top of that shield, but am I sure that this is representing me? When I look up these surnames and these Ruses, They try to hide you under Saracen, and then that's when you get the dumb Diversas saying subjugate the Saracens and pagans, and you're only talking about these Rus. Oh, they want to say Arab when they know they're talking about the Israelite kingdom, the lost tribes of Israel. The surnames for the red thread of the lost tribes of Israel, the Rus, the Picts. The Picts, the Rus, the Rosses. Let go. So when you keep hearing Russia and they don't know, this is what they're talking about, the Rus. They're talking about the family, the tribe.
Designated as a star.
Hold up, man. We're going to get to my man Gio dropping that drop, man. You know what I'm saying? We're getting orientation all the way true. So the Russians themselves are capable of everything. These Ruses, these Rosses, these Picts, these Israelite kings, this family is capable of everything without any influence from outside. And that in general, Russia is unique in every aspect. There never has been another such country that can never be won. In particular, Russia, they say, exercised a decisive effect on the course of the history of all mankind over the centuries. Nevertheless, today the Russian language, for example, there's a huge number of Turkisms, such turns of speech, and even grammatical forms adopted from many neighbors, including the Uyghurs, and Finns. Nor can one fail to notice the Arab influence as well. In any event, it is beyond dispute that in as early as the 17th century, Russian texts were sometimes written in Arabic Kufic letters. 1656, the travel notes of Archdeacon Pavel Alepsky shows that Arabic letters were used in the writing of Russian words. That means that this alphabet system was in use in the territory of present Russia. Evidences of such influences are endless. According to legend, the Laurentian manuscript was compiled in 1111 to 1113. All right, we're still talking the 12th century, with the participation of full authorship of the learned monk Nestor. Oh. So now we got a Nestor sighting. Now they call him Nestor myth, and now Nestor is connecting with this Rus, huh? Of the Kiev. We're going to get into the Kievs. All these were your lands, my people. Kiev Perch Monastery, who wrote about events 200 to 300 years previous to his time. So he had the gift of prophecy. Even if one assumes that Nestor really existed. So here we go. We don't even know if he existed, but Prester John is a Nestorian Christian. He's a mythological Christian. If we don't know who Nestor existed, and you're basing their Christianity on this guy that you don't know existed, and you're saying that whatever this man is and you're connected to is a myth. That's how you're labeling it. It's a mythology. It's so great that you can't even conceive the origin of this Nestor if he really existed. And this is extremely doubtful that he did. Oh man, the question immediately arises, from what source did he come to know about events 300 years old? If some kind of ancient source existed, then why rewrite them? For what purpose? Here is how modern historians answer these questions. Obviously, he searched for some basis for the noble, princely, royal origin of the Rurik clan, since being on a par with the imperial royal clans of Europe, and the house of Rurik had to show their requisite genealogical dignity. That's from Jarek Onahan and A New Hypothesis. The phrase alone is worth a dozen lengthy dissertations about those distant times, and also was the case in Western Europe. Mythological pedigrees for rulers were created in Russia. Genealogical justifications which allowed the strong to declare the intrinsic right to the control of the country, and one can consider the Laurentian Laurentian manuscript to have been only the start of this process. So we got to dig on this Laurentian manuscript. As time went on, the more the manuscripts served the purposes of state policy from the end of the 15th and start of the 16th centuries, they are not content with a biased account of a contemporary events by the chronicler, or to introduce biased interpretations into the portrayal of the past following after Nestor. A whole series of officious legends took shape which validated the political claims of Moscow. All right, we're going to dig into the Kremlin. The rights of the sovereign in Moscow to Rus, to the Kiev legacy, and finally to the power of the Byzantine emperors. What are we talking about with this Byzantine chronology? In other words, the rulers' appetites had grown, and the court's historians, having grasped the baton from the chroniclers, substantiated these rights in their own works. Russia, at the start of its history, already seemed to Vasily Tatishev, one of the first eminent Russian historians, a hereditary monarch controlled by the autocratic sovereigns of the House of Rurik, who received its authority by the will of their Slavic predecessors. This was, in Tatishev's opinion, a period of prosperity and glory in the Russian state. So whoever this House of Rurik is might also be connecting with an Israelite empire. Sovereigns. So this was the chief fundamental task of Russian historians, formulated for the first time by Tatishev, to prove the lawfulness of the monarchical authority and its salutary influence on the state's development. So they're proving that these Mongols, these savages, actually had the drop, and that they were not some lawless savages, but they actually had the real law. And how does it connect to you? In this sense, they in no respect differed from the contemporary colleagues in Europe. According to Tatishev, the second period of decline began when Russia was divided between the multiplying heirs. So now you have this war between heirs, right? Similar to a war between the heirs of the Khans, Hong Kong and Genghis Khan, of the prince's house, who began to regard themselves as equal to the Grand Duke himself, thus weakening central authority. This decline resulted in the breakup of the state into parts, the refusal of the Lithuanian princes, previously having been in citizenship, to obey the nullification of the prince's authority in many cities and establishment there of their own democratic governments. Finally, the nadir was reached in the enslavement of Rus by the Tartars. A very important moment. Remarkable rulers arrived from the west and from the orient. The 300-year-old Tartar-Mongol yoke was imminent. The most eminent scientist, George Vernadsky, wrote in the work The Mongols in Russia, this was a deeply continental wave, a singular wave of uncommon force and a degree of effort unprecedented earlier. The political submission of the Russian earth to the Orient had begun. The Mongol yoke. The yoke. The forefather of Russian poetry, Alexander Pushkin, wrote 1834, still more harshly. For a long time, Russia was isolated completely from the fate of Europe. Her broad plains absorbed countless hordes of Mongols, stopping their destructive invasion. Christian enlightenment was saved by a tortured, dying Russia. In this expression are conveyed the core ideas of the official version of the invasion. Russia struggled with the Mongols not for life, but to death, forcing them to waste all their forces in protecting Europe by itself. As a result, she was torn away from European civilizations for several centuries. This isolation, Russia's traditional historians explain, played a decisive role in the fact that the country distinctively lagged behind Europe in its development. Such an explanation was simple and convenient in every respect. It allowed the root of the reasons for the country's problems to be found not within itself, but beyond her borders, to blame its own miscalculations on foreign, and thereby to justify the crimes of Russia's government against its own citizens. And there are many such crimes and miscalculations in Russia's history. In a word, the Tartar-Mongol yoke is of invaluable utility for traditional historiography. According to the official concept, the yoke itself passed through several stages. In the first half of the 13th century, the powerful Mongol Empire rose in the expanse of the Yellow Sea to the Carpathians as a result of violent achievements. Here we go. All right, let's put on our rain boots. Let's get some drop. So in 1206, Genghis Khan. All right, remember the connection with Prester John Genghis Khan. I just want you to pay attention to the dates. So that was 1206. Right here you have the 1221 report. All right. Was circulated among the victors that in the east, King David, either his son or presbyter, had placed himself at the head of the three powerful armies. Now, so then we get the 1202, 1203 thing. So, did Genghis Khan take over this, Prester John in 1202, and then take over the Khan, and then call himself after King David and say, I'm the new David? And now you're hearing from him in 1221, and placed himself as the head of the powerful armies that was moving up on the Mohammedan countries. And they said that many expected that King David and his host would offer their support to the long-awaiting Frederick II. 1202, after murdering their own ruler, David, the Tartars set about destroying the people. The Tartars set about destroying the people after murdering their own ruler, David, 1202. So now we're at 1202. Now what is this author saying about 1206? 1206, Genghis Khan conquered northern China and turned his hordes westward. He subdued Turkestan, invaded Persia. In 1222 to 1224, parts of his troops, having rounded the Caspian Sea, swept through southern Rus. Now, all this is after the supposed takedown of Prester John. And we have heard China in reference to South America, Cuba, different things. So let's not, completely discount that this is all taking place in South America, and that Genghis Khan invaded the Americas in 1203, taking out Prester John, and then continued westward, and what they're calling these places now, but what they're calling the names and locations of these places today is not their original names and places and locations. So don't get so hooked because you know where China is today that there's not a China over here, or an India here, or an India there, or Persia here, or Persia here. In 1223, the Mongols routed Palovestian and southwestern Slavic troops. The incursion in the Caucasians came in. You think you Caucasian? The incursion into the Caucasian came in 1230 to 1236. 1236, they ravaged Greater Armenia. The Mongols burnt almost all the Armenian cities and destroyed the capital of Greater Armenia, the city of Ani, so badly that it could not recover after this defeat. 1223 was the capture of Kiev, which was major when we're talking about these Israelites, of these Russes. So, Genghis and then was still rolling up on Prester John and his people, on this, tribe of the Cariates, or tribe of Judah. 1240, Poland was ravaged. 1241, they routed the army of Henry the Pious near Wrocław. 1241, they invaded Poland, afterwards Hungary, Moravia, Silesia. 1242, the troops of Khan Batu reached the shores of the Adriatic Sea. The written sources of the time tell of European countries were experienced at the same time. The manuscript reports the fate of the Hungarian king Bela IV, whose domain had undergone complete devastation, were testimony of the real threat that hung over Italy, France, and Germany. All right, let me belly flop down here. So in 1238, the embassy arrived in Europe from the leader of the Ishmaelites. All right, so if there's a leader of the Ishmaelites in 1238, you don't think there's a leader of the Israelites? And what does that got to do with your Americas when you know that Prester John was ran up on, and you know that Prester John is being rocking over here in the Americas? You thought Columbus's invasion was the first one? Go 200 years earlier, and you got the foster son or nephew of Prester John, Genghis Khan. The Israelites asked for help to save them from the Mongol conquerors, Ishmaelites. So these Ishmaelites, check this out. All right, when we talk about this confederation, this confederacy, Psalms 83, Moab and the Ishmaelites and the Amalekites and the Ammonites, these people ran to the embassy in Europe. All right, from the leader of Ishmael, who were inducing fear on Syria and Iraq. The Ishmaelites asked for help to save them from the Mongol conquerors. They needed help, so they went to Europe. Who's in Europe? The Moors. The world, in a panic, was getting used to the kind of people that made up the armies of the oppressors and fixed their observations in various letters, notes, and reports. Their observations and facts, it is necessary to point out, contradict the official historiography radically. There are notes in the Hungarian king and a letter to the Pope in which it is said that the Mongol troops consist of Slavic troops. When the king wrote, the state of Hungary, as from a plague, was turned into a wasteland from the Mongol invasion, and like a sheepfold was surrounded by various tribes of unbelievers, namely by Russians. So they're unbelieving in their Christ. The Hungarians, these people were unbelievers in their energy. These Ruses, they believed in their creator. Brodniks from the Orient, Bulgars, and other heretics. So I guarantee, man, all these are lining up with these tribes. As early as before the conquest of Rus, some parts of Rus, with their leader Planskinia, already were found with the Mongol troops. Russian people composed the main mass of the armed, serving and working forces of the Golden Horde. So you had some of the Ruses that were rocking with Genghis Khan. You know what I mean? Some Ruses were rocking with, the OG King David. The driving away of Russian captives to the horde. The images, man. The main mass, that is Slavs, played particularly the main role. All these Rus, Brodnik, Bulgars, and other heretics. The researchers, A. Gordeev, has devoted much effort and time in studying the history of the Cossacks. Getting back to the Cossacks, the Khazars, the Cossacks, the Khazars. Now we're getting into this 12th century when it gets into the history of these Cossacks, and further, the name Cossacks was given to that part of the troops who were among the armed forces of the Horde's Light cavalry units in the second half of the 12th century. There were independent tribes living in Eastern and Central Asia who bore the name Cossack hordes, Golden Hordes. History of the Cossacks. It turns out that the Mongols, in relationship to the Slavs, conducted themselves rather strangely for conquerors. So here we go. We're going to look at this with a interesting perspective. So these Mongols, according to this researcher, conducted themselves rather strangely for conquerors. An Orthodox church was built at the Khan's headquarters. From the first days of the organization of the Horde. So an Orthodox church, whatever that means. That could mean Nestorian. That could mean temple. All right. This could be talking about Genghis Khan, pre-hijack, after hijack, whatever's going on with that. Obviously, he came in, hijacked King David, Prester John. He came and hijacked the Khan. So when he took the Khan, is that when this Orthodox church was built? Was he ever rocking with that? I hear various, perspectives. So With the establishment of the military settlements within the boundaries of the horde, they began to call upon the clergy and establish a church hierarchy. The Metropolitan Cyril moved from Novgorod to the city to live in Kiev, where the metropolis of all Rus was established for him. So Kiev was a big metropolis, a big city for these Israelites who were surfing that wave. So such behavior on the part of the foreign conquerors looks absurd by any standard, especially for that time when the conquerors were subjecting the vanquished countries to fire and sword. That very same Hungary was ravished utterly by the Mongols. The well-known Arabic traveler Rashid ad-Din says that Christianity was stronger than Islam during the time of Guyuk. The Christians Kadak and Chingai managed all the Khan's offices. The Kadak even had the responsibility for the Atabek under Gayak. The medieval documents maintained in 1248, so pay attention to these dates. So this is after the takedown of Prester John. You got all this other hijack. Two ambassadors who arrived from the Mongol Empire held discussions with Ludwig IX, and they reported that the great Khan Guyuk, who considered himself on his mother's side the grandson of the Presbyter John. So we even talking Prester John in this document, and I'm reading this with you. So I can't wait to when we get back into Prester John, we're going right through it. We just doing Prester John, we just going to concentrate all our effort on that and keep digging on it. So this Grand Khan is said to be the grandson of Prester John, who they're calling a Christian ruler, or a Nestorian Christian, right? Recognized baptism and forced 18 Mongol princes to be baptized. So this grandson, after this hijack in 1248, he's saying, yeah, man, I'm a relative of King David, but now he's under a different rulership with this Genghis Khan. The ambassadors themselves also were Christians or Nestorians. The modern historiography does not like such a report, and comments on it look like this one. The ambassadors wanted the established rapport with Ludwig, and therefore they wanted to establish rapport with Ludwig, and therefore they said that they were Christians too. That's why they wanted to establish rapport. The purpose of such comments is understandable. The Slavs, and even more so the Christians, were supposed at all costs to remain good boys, that is, to have nothing in common with the Mongols. But here is bad luck. The allusions are frequent in the documents to the fact that the Mongol Khans were married to Byzantine princesses. We're just talking Byzantine chronology. And that the Byzantine emperors willingly took as wives the daughters of the Eastern Khagan rulers. For example, Justinian II married a Khagan daughter who received at baptism the name Theodora. Tiberius II also married Khagan daughter and returns from Khazaria, which is Mazaka, Moses, to Constantinople in 702. We're talking about Tiberius II, that's right around that Theodorus period of Kalelus, with the Khazar retinue. The daughter of other Khagan was the wife of Constantine V. Her Christian name was Irina. In the 9th century, the Byzantine empires created a Khazar guard at the court. Many of the Khazar military rose to high ranks in the emperor's army and administration. We are not here again belaboring the dates involved, already cited within the framework of discussing the Scalagarian chronology. As already said, the archaeological remains do not support the existence of huge tribal and what is more state formations on the territory of the Black Sea area the 8th to 10th centuries. So there was at least officially nowhere from which Constantine could have taken the daughter of Khagan as a wife in the middle of the 8th century. We also will not touch on the terminology within the framework of which the Slav tribes of that time are called Russians. Right now, another matter is more important: strong kindred ties to the leaders of the Byzantine and Tartar Mongolia. But what then evolved? The delicate Byzantine princesses were resettled from their own luxurious palaces to yurts, the tents of savage nomads, tended sheep, milked Mars, froze and chewed the tough horse flesh with difficulty. Some did not know how to write at that time like the others, yet they composed poems and historical works. Some drank kumis, wrapped themselves in dirty hides, the others choice wines while lying on soft beds. A fantastic picture that has nothing in common with reality. So what is reality? The frequent mutual marriages, as Anatoly Fomenko emphasizes, deliberately refer to the commonality of religion and the intimacy of culture. So all these Khazars and Mongols were not savage nomads. No. Certain of these tribes were the house of Israel. In their disguise under these titles, they manifested touching concern not only for the spiritual health of the subjugated Russia, but for Christianity as a whole. For example, the Russian system of communication, which existed before the end of the 9th century, was also introduced by the Mongols. Their entire system of communication was introduced by the Mongols, quote unquote, Israelites, quote unquote, including the coachman, well known to everyone, and even the name Yamshik, coachman, is of Turkish origin. Alright, an analysis of the manuscripts of the period testifies to the fact that there are no panicky notes in them in connection with an invasion of Mongols. They recount the most commonplace events, which churches were built, who married whom, and so forth, and they absolutely did not know that at this time foreigners supposedly are conquering them, creating on their lands a huge alien empire, means of communication new and unusual to them, bridges and the like. The conclusions of Anatoly Fomenko and his followers, adherents of the new chronology, in our view, are beyond any question correct, that the so-called Tartar-Mongolian yoke was simply a period of military rule of Russian state. No foreigners captured it. The supreme ruler is the Khan in Russia. So there was no difference between Mongolia and Russia. It's the same thing. And these Russes, these Rosses, and these Mozakas, and these Israelites in Mozaka and in Rus, and the Mongols are the same. There was no point of conquer. You're just talking about switching up of different empires, but you're all talking about the same commonality, as their supreme ruler was, their military leader was their Khan, their priest king. He was the king. His deputies, princes, stayed in the cities. They collected the notorious tribute to the Tartars, a state tax for the maintenance of the troops. They collected, too, the well-known tribute of blood. They conscripted every 10th man into the army, not temporarily, but from childhood itself and for life. By the way, such an enlistment was operative in Russia for several more centuries, even after the defeat of the Tartar-Mongol. It could be asked why this custom endured for so long a time in Rus, when it was supposedly established by the hatred of foreigners. It is usually the other way around. When foreign dominion is cast off, its heritage is destroyed and damned. Tartar incursions are well known, terrible consequences, but it is correct to call them not incursions, but punitive expeditions against those areas that for some reason refused to pay tribute or had risen up against the central authority. So when you think Tartar, when you think Mongol, when you think Rus, that's what they're covering up. The rulers of Avar, Bulgar, Magars, and even the Rus were the Khans. So Clan Ross rulers were also Khans. And that's why you're getting Khan, the legend of Prester John. That's why you're getting Marco Polo speaks of Kong as the great prince who was called Prester John. The Carriers, Nestorians. Some might even say that Genghis Khan is King David. But I think we are surfing a good wave to say that he's a relative that was hijacking. And we're only talking about your man, my man, the emperor of all the three Indias, the last noble image of the Negro, the last noble image of the copper color, the regal Negro, Hawada, Prester John. And again, man, I'll leave the link for the schisms. You know, we got into the schisms of 1054 after the arrival of Constantinople. The legends from Rome interviewed both the patriarch and the emperor and delivered to each of them his respective letter to the Roman Pope Cerularius. The Greek patriarch was offended and angered by the letter that Leo IX had written, and moreover he felt insulted by Humbert's attitude towards him. On June 24, 1054. The Schism of 1054. Hubert and his two associates proceeded to the monastery at Sudian and publicly debated there with Nicetatus Stratotus in the presence of the emperor's court, and other persons of high rank in affairs of state and church. They spent their time thereafter in the city without accomplishing anything of significance. The patriarch refused to be interviewed by them again, feeling that he had been insulted and that such a visit would be useless. We're just talking about the Sabbath in AD 1054. And at that time, 9 o'clock in the morning on that Sabbath day, when preparations were being made for the religious ceremonies or services of that day, the Roman emissaries bitterly denounced the Greek patriarch and all who sided with them. Then, having spoken their piece, they quickly placed upon the principal altar the Vatican writ of excommunication against the churches of the East and their clergy, and walked away. So you have this schism happening in 1054. We're just talking about the Jews and their observance of the Sabbath was saddened and heavy on this Sabbath day on account of the day of their Lord, whom they did not believe to be about to be resurrected. Wherefore you observe the Sabbath with the Jews, and with us the Sunday, Lord's Day. And now they took the Sabbath and put it on a Sunday. Yeah, man. You keep digging on that schism of 1054 because something happened at that time, because it's being called year one. And a lot went down, and you keep digging on this drop right here, man. The old world root of the Cherokee. We definitely had some drop tying into the James Adair. I'll leave this for you, man. We'll be right back in that Prester John. You already know. We just getting warm, man. We just getting warm. I said we just getting warm, man. We just keeping it real toasty. The fire's still burning. That's a beautiful thing. Man, let's go ahead and take it to my man Gio, man, who's kicking that flat drop, man. We'll be right back in it. You know what I mean? Connected celestial sky areas, and how does this play with your orientation? How does this play with Prester John?
Luminous areas
Fountain of Youth,
about us represent
Garden of Eden. The observed luminous areas of the universe about us represent celestial sky areas, and they are as continuous and connected as all areas of this earth, continuous and connected sky. Hence, it is shown that there are no globular or isolated bodies. It's all an illusion of these telescopes to be found throughout the entire universe. They are elements of lens deception. Let's get this for the dismount. I love y'all, man. Stay up, suit up. Shabbat shalom. We back in that flat drop worlds beyond the pole, Giannini. Let go.
And they are as continuous and connected as all areas of this Earth's continuous and connected sky. Hence, it is shown that there are no globular or isolated bodies to be found throughout the entire universe. They are elements of lens deception. This work is radically and rightfully opposed to astronomical conclusions of all ages. It depicts the illusion developing from all telescopic observations and photographs. It clearly explains and vividly illustrates why those lens-developed illusions have been mistakenly accepted as facts. This work projects man's first understanding of the factual and endless universe, which contains human life throughout its vast length and width, regardless of all abstract theory to the contrary. This book claims to be non-fiction based on facts. Endless land with human life beyond poles? No one is talking about this book on YouTube. I only found 2 good videos so far, one from Chippy the Chipmunk and another great video from Flat Drop. I will link these videos in the description.
Hey, man, I guess in the flat earth world, they call me Flat Drop. But love to this family, man. He, you know what I'm saying, been kicking it for a minute when mountains were trees. And, you know, appreciate the energy, man. We keep it pushing. Much love, much respect.
Here are some other interesting parts I took out of the book. February of 1947. I'd like to see that land beyond the pole. That area beyond the pole is the center of the great unknown. Admiral Richard Byrd before his 7-hour flight over land beyond the North Pole. November of 1955. This is the most important expedition in the history of the world. Admiral Richard Byrd before departing to explore land beyond the South Pole. January of 1956. 13 members of the United States expedition accomplished a flight of 2,700 miles from the base at McMurdo Station, which is 400 miles west of the South Pole, and penetrated a land extent of 2,300 miles beyond the pole. Most of you probably know about the interview Admiral Byrd gave on the television. Here is a small part of it.
Our guest tonight found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
There is no physical end to the Earth's northern and southern extent. There is no space between areas of the universe, but there must deceptively appear to be space in all observations. That apparent space results from the illusory globularity and isolation of the celestial sky areas. The concept that the universe is made out of globular and isolated bodies originated from the curvature that is created by all lenses. The bodies are an illusion. The ancient conclusion of Galileo that luminous celestial areas are isolated from each other and are circling in space was founded on the inescapable errors of lens functioning. The circling movement is an illusion. In an endless land and sky universe, the undulating or billowing of luminous sky gas must deceptively appear as a circling or ellipsing movement. The deceptive appearance develops from the fact that such gaseous sky movement is detected by a circular lens. Under the mobile sky gas, which extend throughout the celestial realm, there is undetectable but very factual land, water, vegetation and life like on this earth.
Under the mobile sky gas, which extends throughout the celestial realm, there is undetectable but very factual land, water, vegetation, and life, like on this earth or realm, like on this plane. We're going to walk straight. We're going to see. We're going to keep moving our feet. And we will exist. And we do exist. Thank y'all for vibing. Keep having a peaceful rest. Remember to rest. All praise our Creator of our sacred trees for remembering us. And for this time of redeeming, harvest, and redemption, love to the tribe, Nation.